Hello students, in this video let us understand the concept of vapor pressure. Now vapor pressure of a liquid or solution is the pressure exerted by the vapors when rate of condensation and rate of evaporation achieve equilibrium at a particular temperature. To understand this, say we have a beaker filled with water, okay, and it is half filled. We are covering this particular beaker with the help of a bell jar. Then next you're going to proceed with heating of this water, right? So let us keep a Bunsen burner on the lower side and you are starting heating it. So during that heating, what will happen? Evaporation will proceed. As the evaporation proceeds, the number of gaseous molecules will go on increasing and they are ultimately going to fill up this vacant space. Right? Now, as far as these gaseous molecules are concerned, they are having their random movement. During that random movement, it is quite possible that some of the molecules strike the surface. So, they strike the surface here, right? And as soon as they strike the surface of the liquid, what happens? Condensation starts or they get condensed. That means what can I say in such systems? Both the types of processes are occurring simultaneously, evaporation as well as condensation. Ultimately, there will be a point where both this process of condensation or the rate of condensation and the rate of evaporation will become equal to each other, and that is the stage of equilibrium. Okay? At this particular equilibrium stage and at that particular temperature, the pressure created by the vapors, right, above the surface of the liquid is termed as vapor pressure. I hope the concept is clear. Now, as far as the factors affecting this vapor pressure, the first important factor is the nature of the liquid. So, each liquid has its own characteristic magnitude for intermolecular forces. Say I consider two examples. Say one is water and the other solvent, say it is acetone. Okay, as far as the intermolecular forces are concerned, water have higher intermolecular forces, right? Since it is a highly polar solvent, they have high intermolecular forces compared to acetone. Now what will happen in case of water? To break those intermolecular forces and convert into its vapor state, you need to supply more amount of energy. That means the number of molecules which escape into the gaseous phase in case of water will be less, right? So what can you say about the vapor pressure created due to that vapor molecules? That will be less in case of water as a solvent, right, compared to that of acetone. That means we have a direct relationship which we can establish, that higher is the intermolecular forces or stronger are the intermolecular forces between the solvent system, then definitely the vapor pressure which is created, that will be small. So it is a inverse relationship, and that is what has been specified. Vapor pressure is inversely proportional to the intermolecular forces. Okay. The next factor affecting the vapor pressure is the temperature of the liquid. As far as this factor is concerned, you have a direct relationship that vapor pressure of a liquid increases with increase in temperature. Isn't it reliable? How can you understand this? As you increase the temperature, what will happen? More molecules will have larger kinetic energy. Larger is the kinetic energy associated with larger number of molecules. What will happen? They can easily escape from the surface of the liquid and move into the vapor phase. So as soon as the number of molecules increase within the vapor phase, definitely the vapor pressure exerted by those molecules over the surface of the liquid is going to increase. Okay, so larger is the temperature or increase in temperature will result in increase in vapor pressure of a liquid. This can be further supported with the help of Clausius-Clapeyron equation. You are aware of this Clausius-Clapeyron equation, whereby you relate the vapor pressures at particular temperatures, say T1 and T2, with reference to delta H vaporization. What is delta H vaporization? It is the enthalpy of vaporization of the liquid. That relation also makes us understand the same concept, that yes, vapor pressures are directly proportional to the temperature of that system. Is it okay? Now let us move ahead. Now let us find out what will be the vapor pressure of solution with non-volatile solute like sugar. Say for instance, we are taking a small amount of sugar and we are adding it to the beaker of water. Okay, so we are adding sugar to it, which has already certain amount of water within, and it results in the formation of a solution. Now what will happen in such cases? Definitely certain particles of that solute will occupy some surface area of the solvent, so it will be occupying the surface area, right? During this process, since we know solute is non-volatile in nature, in this case sugar is a non-volatile solute, right? So when we start heating such solutions, only the solvent molecules or the water molecules are going to change into the vapors on heating. Okay, so I can say solute won't be converting into vapors, however solvent or the water molecules will be readily converting into vapors, since evaporation is a surface phenomenon. So what can you say about the rate of evaporation? Definitely rate of evaporation will decrease. Yes or no? Because the number of vapors which are able to get converted itself from the liquid surface, it decreases due to existence of that non-volatile solute within the solution. Okay, so when I say the rate of evaporation decreases, it will adversely affect the rate of condensation as well. Okay, on that basis, now what I can say, the overall effect will be the vapor pressure of solution will be less than that of the pure solvent. This is a very important concept often asked in your exams, why the vapor pressure of the solution is less than that of the pure solvent. To make it more clear to you, let us understand with the help of a figure. So see the figure on your screen. The A part is that for the pure solvent and B is for the solution with a non-volatile solute like sugar. See A part first. When you are taking a pure solvent and you are heating it and you are kept the bell jar across it, over it, right? What will happen? The solvent particles will go on escaping or will be getting converted into the vapor phase. So there will be greater number of solvent particles in the vapor phase. However, on the other side, when you are adding a non-volatile solute to the solvent, what is going to happen? This layer, this surface layer will be almost equally occupied by the solute particles as well as the solvent particles, because of which what will be the effect? Because of which the number of solvent particles which can readily escape into the space, into the available space, are going to decrease. So we have a smaller number of solvent particles in the vapor phase, since there is a non-volatile solute occupying almost half portion across the surface layer, right? So on that basis, I can say that yes, your vapor pressure in case of pure solvent will be more than that of the vapor pressure for the solution having a non-volatile solute. Okay, so let us move ahead. After that, we will consider the vapor pressure for solution having a volatile solvent as well as volatile solute. So if both the components, that is solute and solvent, present within the binary solution are volatile, say for example alcohol and water, right, and the condition is they should be non-reacting in nature, then in such cases vapors of both of them will be present above the surface of that solution, right? That means what will be the vapor pressure of solution then? It will be the sum of the partial vapor pressures of this volatile components, right? So in case of alcohol water mixture, P1 say it is the partial vapor pressure for alcohol and P2 say it is the partial vapor pressure for water. So it will be the combination of both of them. Is it clear? So that's about the concept of vapor pressure and its reference if they have a non-volatile solute or a volatile solute. So what will be the related vapor pressure in such cases? Now further we'll move to the Rawls law and its relation to the vapor pressure. Rawls studied the vapor pressure of a number of binary solutions and he put forward a generalized concept known as Rawls law. See the statement. It states At a given temperature for a solution of volatile liquids, the partial vapor pressure of each component in solution is equal to the product of the vapor pressure of the pure component and its mole fraction in solution. This simple statement can be understood in the form of a simple expression as quoted on the lower side of your screen. So if I consider two liquids, since we are talking about the binary solution, so let us consider binary solution having two liquids, two volatile liquids, A and B. Okay. Now if PA and PP are the partial vapor pressures of those two liquids and XA and XB are their mole fractions within the solution, then according to Raoult's law, it states PA is equal to PA0 into XA and PB is equal to PB0 into XB. You must be very much aware when you put this zero term across any parameter, what does it mean? It stands for standard parameter or standard concentration. So similarly for this case also, PA0 and PB0 specified are the vapor pressures of the pure liquid components. So pure liquid A component PA0 and for pure liquid B component it is PB0. Is it okay? So in case of binary solutions of two volatile liquids, we have a direct relation that the total vapor pressure created within the solution, that will be P is equal to PA plus PB, right? So that is equal to PA0XA plus PB0XB, right? So you are in a position to find out the vapor pressure of such solutions by applying this particular formula. Next is about for the vapor pressure in case of non-volatile solute. So you need to consider now the Raoult's law for solutions containing the non-volatile solute. The same example which we considered earlier, that is water in presence of sugar, which was a non-volatile solute, right? You can just remember that. So what can you know about that? That PB is equal to 0. We have a direct relation here. PB is equal to 0. Why? B stands for solute. So we have a non-volatile solute here, right? So the vapor pressure created by the non-volatile solute will definitely be 0. So what will be the total vapor pressure of the solution then? That will be only due to the solvent molecules or the vapor pressure created by the solvent molecules. So P is equal to PA, that is equal to PA0 into the mole fraction of A. Okay. So what overall effect you can observe on the vapor pressure of such solutions? It will result in lowering of the vapor pressures, right? That you can more clearly understand by this particular concept. You remember this XA plus XB is equal to 1. When you have done the concept of molarity, normality, mole fractions and so on, there we have seen that mole fractions of two components, this is equal to 1. So XA plus XB is equal to 1. Here A stands for the solvent and B stands for the non-volatile solute. Now what will happen in this case? In this particular case, only the non-volatile solute or the volatile component which you are having is in the form of a solvent, A solvent, right? So the maximum value of XA for a volatile component in the solution will be always less than 1. Are you able to understand, right? So this value is always be equal to less than 1 because XA plus XB is equal to 1 and XB is almost equivalent to 0. Okay, so XA will be less than 1 and on that basis you can say that PA is less than PA0. When I say PA is less than PA0, what does it mean? Again the same concept according to Raoult's law as well, that vapor pressure of the solvent within the solution or vapor pressure of the solution directly. In such cases, having a non-volatile solute, it will be less than that of the vapor pressure of pure solvent A. Is it okay? PA0 stands for vapor pressure of pure solvent, right? So it will be having more vapor pressure compared to that of the vapor pressure of such solutions having a non-volatile solute. Okay. Now in this particular section, we'll see Raoult's law as a special case, right? First of all, in terms of Henry's law. See, Henry's law we have done in complete detail in the original portion, right? So you can check out for the initial videos where we have completely understood what is Henry's law and how to deal with such concepts of Henry's law, right? So let us try to relate it with Rawls' law in this case. As far as Rawls' law, what does it say? That the vapor pressure of the volatile component A in a given solution, if you want to find it out, you can simply apply this particular concept as per the statement. That is, the vapor pressure of pure solvent A, say PA, or not pure solvent, rather the vapor pressure of the component A within a solution, PA, that will be equal to vapor pressure of the pure component A multiplied by the mole fraction of that component within the solution. Okay, as far as Henry's law is concerned, it is applicable to the solution of a gas in a liquid, right? So the gaseous component is normally so volatile that it exists in the form of a gas, right? And its solubility in the liquid is given by Henry's law. What is Henry's law? According to the statement, it is Pa is equal to Kh into Xa. Again, Pa and Xa have the similar meanings as we have specified for the Rawls law. Okay, so when we equate both these statements in terms of the expression, what you can observe on comparison, that only the proportionality constants, that is Pa0 and Kh, right, they are different. All other parameters are same. Okay, so you can say Rawls' law may be regarded as a special case of Henry's law, in which your Kh, that is the Henry's constant, becomes equal to Pa0. What is Pa0? It is the vapor pressure of the pure solvent A. Is it okay? That's a special case of Henry's law in reference to the Rawls' law. Next is about the Konovalov's law. See, why this law has been specified to you is just to understand. You have seen in various forms that we are talking about the partial vapor pressures, the partial pressure created by the component A, created by the component B. But how to find out this partial pressure of the component? Then that you can easily find out with the help of this law. See the statement. It states that the partial pressure of the component is the product of mole fraction of that component within the vapor phase and the total pressure within the solution. Okay, so if you want to find out the partial pressure of any component, say I, then how you can find it out? Pi is equal to Xi, that is mole fraction of that component in the vapor phase, multiplied by the total pressure of the solution. Is it clear? So that's for this particular video. Thank you for watching.